Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is burn. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear burn used is to mean to produce flames and heat while consuming a material. So with this, I'd encourage you maybe think of a bonfire, right? And we could describe what is happening, right, as the fire is burning. So producing flames and heat. With a bonfire, it's likely consuming wood, but other things will burn as well. A second way you'll hear burn used is to mean to use a type of fuel as a source of heat or energy. So people will talk about burning gasoline. That would be an example of a type of fuel. A third way you might hear burn used is to mean to convert calories to energy. Sometimes as people work out, they talk about burning calories, or that idea of they're trying to use a lot of energy because for maybe they're trying to lose weight or have some other kind of goal or motivation. A fourth way you might hear burn used is to mean to destroy, damage, or injure by heat or fire. So some people will say, I was burned, right? I have these particular injuries from heat or a fire. A fifth way you might hear burn used is in relation to the human skin. So when our skin becomes red or painful due to being exposed to the sun, we describe that as um, a burn, or you might hear even sunburn to kind of note that it's from the sun and not from heat or another fire source. A sixth way you might hear burn used is to mean to produce a CD or DVD by copying it from an original. So this might not be as popular to hear now when there are so many different streaming services, ways to listen to CDs, or ways to watch movies and TV shows. But in, I would say, the late 90s, early 2000s, you would still hear a lot of people talking about burning a CD or making a copy. You should know that burn is a regular verb. To make the progressive, we're going to add ing to form burning. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, burn, ends in a voiced N sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. It should sound like this: burned, burned. Okay. Now, I know I've already shared with you a lot of definitions, ways to use burn, and I maybe have some bad news. There are even more through the use of phrasal verbs. So today we're going to focus on phrasal verbs, ways to use burn. We won't do any individual verb tense practice, but I'll try and explain some of the tenses I'm using in my examples as we go along. The first phrasal verb we're going to look at is burn away. Can have a couple different meanings. One is to have something burn until there is no more of it. An example of this might be, the fire burned away the vegetation from the hillside. So here, vegetation, think plants of some kind, right? And so there was a fire. It burned all of these plants until there were no more plants left. This example sentence is in the simple past tense. A second way you might hear burn away is just to mean to continue burning. An example of this: the candles are burning away and creating a beautiful glow on the mantle. Right? So maybe someone has decorated with candles, right? And we're noting that the candles are continuing to burn. Another phrasal verb you might hear is burn down. This means to destroy something with fire. An example of this might be, the house burned down yesterday. Here's another simple past tense sentence. Many times burn down is used to note when there was a structure, something large, right? And and then it ceases to exist, or it's no longer the structure that it was. So that's the idea there of burn down. Another phrasal verb you might hear is burn for. Uh, this has a very different meaning. So this is to deeply want, desire, or long for someone or something. And I feel like you might hear this phrasal verb used in sort of romantic literature, maybe movies, other stories of. So that's my example here. Mike still burns for Mary, even though they broke up a few months ago. So here we've got simple present, right? And this idea Mike still has this desire, this love for this other person. Another phrasal verb you might hear is burn in. This can have a couple different meanings. One is to use heat in order to engrave or etch something, right? So this idea of kind of we're making a permanent mark. An example might be, she burned in the flowers first before starting on the initials. Okay, so here maybe someone is doing some kind of engraving. They're trying to create kind of this lasting image through the use of fire. She burned in the flowers is another simple past tense example. A second way we can use burn in is to mean to cause a lasting image to form. So many times this phrasal verb is going to be used and followed with in my mind, in my brain, and you can see that in my example here. That image will be burned in my brain forever, right? So here someone has seen something that maybe shocks them, surprises them, and they're really trying to communicate like, I'm never going to forget seeing this. Will be burned in this example sentence is an example of the passive voice in the simple future. All of my earlier examples have been active voice, but I always like to note when we're using passive voice here. So we know image is what is sort of receiving that action. Let's continue looking at some more phrasal verbs. The next one we're going to discuss is burn off. We're going to talk about 3 ways to use that. The first would be that something evaporates due to heating. An example of this might be, the alcohol will burn off during cooking. Sometimes you might hear this in connection to recipes. A recipe might tell you to use wine or some other type of alcohol, and as it heats, the alcohol starts to evaporate. Will burn off is an example of our simple future, but active voice this time. A second way to use burn off is to mean to purposefully use fire to destroy some existing vegetation. An example of this might be, they burn off the prairie every spring. And this is something that happens in the Midwest, particularly in areas where they're trying to regrow plants that are native to this particular area and land. So there will be these intentional or controlled fires set. It kills certain plants and allows new ones to grow. And this used to kind of happen through nature, and now we're trying to get kind of those native plants to grow back and kill off things that don't maybe now grow but are not native to this land or area. A third way to use burn off is kind of goes back to one of our earlier definitions. So this idea of expending energy or expending calories. An example here, my family burns off Thanksgiving dinner with a long walk. So both this sentence and the previous one about the prairie are examples of the simple present. So we're talking about habits or routines. My Second example here about my family, this is very true, right? Many times people want to eat a large, big meal during Thanksgiving, and then they're like, "Ooh, I need to burn it off. I need to expend some of those calories." And so many times we do take a long walk after Thanksgiving dinner. Another phrasal verb you might hear is burn out. This means that something is going to stop burning. An example of this: the candle just burned out. So this is a simple past tense sentence describing a completed action. Another way to use burn out is to mean that someone is overworking or exhausting themselves. So, an example here: healthcare workers are burning themselves out. Right? This, unfortunately, is a present progressive sentence describing something that's happening now or something that is in progress. And this is a major problem in many communities throughout the United States and throughout the world due to the pandemic. Healthcare workers have been working extraordinarily long hours trying to cover extra shifts and provide care to people who have COVID symptoms as well as many other medical conditions. The next phrasal verb we're going to look at is burn up. So this can have a number of different meanings. We're going to look at three of them. One is to destroy something by fire. And in the past, I've had many students go, wait, Katie, you said, and I'm going to go back in my notes here, right? Burn down was to destroy something by fire. So burn up is the same thing. We tend to use burn up when something is consumed. So I have an example sentence here that's going to combine both burn up and burn down, and I hope that will help us understand it. All of her things burned up when her house burned down. Okay, so all of her things, maybe this is clothing, furniture, books, who knows, right? But her possessions, things that belong to her, they were consumed by the fire. And then the structure no longer exists. That's why we're using burn down with the house. I hope that helps a little bit. A second way we can use burn up is to mean to use all of a resource. An example of this: your spending is burning up our budget. Okay, so here, our resource is money, right? And the way someone is spending it, right, isn't leaving anything else to be used. Is burning up is another present progressive sentence. The last phrasal verb we're going to look at, again, is burn up, but here our meaning is to impact something to a large or great degree. An example of this: the video is burning up social media, right? So meaning a lot of people are paying attention to it, a lot of people are talking about it. This is another present progressive sentence. Now, let's take a moment to look at some words that are related to our verb burn. And the first word we're going to look at is the noun form of this word. So same spelling, same pronunciation. Just like our verb, the noun burn can have a number of different meanings. We're going to look at 6. So the first way we use the noun burn is to refer to an injury that has been caused by someone being exposed to heat or flame. An example of this: residents were treated for first-degree burns. We might see a sentence like this in a newspaper article reporting about a fire. So perhaps it's an apartment building, and so we have people who lived in the apartment building, the residents, they have these injuries that were caused by the fire. A second way we can use the noun burn is to refer to a mark that has been left on something because of fire, right? Or as a result of something being burned. An example of this: is there a cigarette burn on the sofa? Right? So we can imagine, right, a cigarette being on fire, causing this mark on a sofa. A third way to use the noun burn is to refer to a feeling of heat and discomfort on the skin that's caused by friction. Friction, you kind of think of sort of a rubbing. Okay. Here, did you get a rope burn? Right. So if someone is working with, right, they might have this friction on their hand that causes this heat and discomfort. A fourth way we can use the noun burn is to refer to a hot or painful sensation in the muscles. Okay. An example of this, imagine like a fitness instructor, aerobics instructor saying, can we all feel the burn now? Can we feel sort of this pain in our muscles because we're working out so hard? Another way to use the noun burn is to refer to a cutting insult. Okay, so I think we might have heard people say things, someone insults someone else, right? And others go, oh, what a burn, or that's a burn, right? So kind of noting like, wow, you just got insulted. The last way that we're going to discuss using the noun burn is to, again, refer to that action of clearing vegetation through fire or burning. An example here, the local fire department will assist with the burn. So here, intentionally setting fire to plants, that's what we're talking about. The next word we're going to look at is the noun burner. Couple ways to use this. We could talk about the heating element of an electric stove. So an example might be put that pan on the back burner, right? So a space on an electric stove. A second way to use the noun burner is to refer to a person or thing that burns. An example of this. Trampolines are pardon the plural here, trampolines are great energy burners. So here we're talking about consuming energy. A third way you might hear burner used is to refer to a rather cheap mobile phone or cell phone that is usually paid in advance. So you prepay for a certain number of minutes or a certain period of time that it will be used. An example of this might be some Olympic athletes used burner phones while in China. And again, a true statement here. Our US government had encouraged people, maybe don't take your personal cell phones with you to China, get a burner. The last word we're going to look at today is the adjective burnt. Now, if I have anybody watching this in the UK or who has primarily learned English through a teacher who is from the UK, you might have been thinking, wait a second, isn't burnt the past tense? And I do believe it is rather common to hear that past tense and participle form in the UK. In the United States, though, it is far more common and I think generally more commonly accepted that we use the ed form, that we treat this as a regular verb. So if you hear burnt in the United States, generally we're using it as an adjective. So one way we can use that adjective is to describe something that has been changed or damaged due to fire or heat. An example of this, how can you eat burnt toast? Okay, so again, here think of a piece of bread put in a toaster, completely turned black, right? How do you eat that? It's been damaged by heat. Another way you might hear the adjective burnt used is to describe some sort of dull color, and generally that color has been achieved through fire or through scorching. So you might hear something like this, she's painting the wall a burnt orange. So again, kind of describing not a bright orange, but an orange that has been dulled or might resemble something you would see kind of in a fire. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.